Most motorhomes are built to be seen. This one was built to disappear. Toyota calls it the Magnor X10. And if you've never heard of it, that's exactly the point. This isn't a vehicle sold off a showroom floor. Word about it moves through private buyer networks, off-grid expedition circles, and a handful of workshops that don't advertise. On paper, it reads like an impossible pairing. Toyota reliability wrapped around a mobile residence built to survive weeks without a road, a hookup, or a phone signal. But what makes the Magnor X10 genuinely rare isn't the outside. It's a decision Toyota made about who actually gets to own one, and we'll get to that. If slow, self-sufficient luxury is your kind of thing, go ahead and subscribe now. You'll want to see where this one ends up. From the outside, the Magnor X10 doesn't try to announce itself. The body runs in a matte graphite green finish Toyota is reportedly calling basalt field, no metallic fleck, no gloss, just a flat, almost military calm to the paint. Composite side panels replace the usual aluminum skin, cutting weight in a way most buyers will never notice, but the engineers clearly obsessed over. The roofline sits lower than expected for a vehicle this size, sloped just enough to shed wind noise at highway speed. Along the sides, recessed LED running strips sit flush with the body instead of bolted on top. And the wheel arches are finished in a matte bronze, usually reserved for concept builds, not production campers. At the front, a low bull bar wraps into integrated recovery points, and dual auxiliary light bars sit tucked behind a smoked cover instead of exposed on a roof rack. It's purposeful design, not decoration. Every piece on the front end reads like it was justified in an engineering meeting before it was ever approved for looks. There's one thing worth being honest about, though. The rear hinge housing for the entry door sits slightly proud of the bodywork, an odd detail on a vehicle this refined everywhere else. It's a small compromise, but it's there. Still, step back and look at the whole shape, and it radiates a kind of confidence that's hard to fake. Compact, low-slung, purpose-built. But the exterior isn't even the interesting part. What's happening under the skin is where this stops looking like a camper and starts looking like something else entirely. Under the composite skin, the Magnor X10 reportedly runs a hybridized turbo-diesel 4-cylinder, producing somewhere in the range of 305 horsepower and roughly 480 pound-feet of torque, according to the spec sheet circulating among early buyers. That torque figure matters more than the horsepower number ever will. It's what lets a fully loaded, water and battery-heavy camper claw up a loose gravel incline without hesitation. Ground clearance sits at just under 11 inches unladen, with a portal-style axle setup that reportedly pushes the approach angle past 34 degrees. Steep enough that Toyota's own test notes describe terrain most motorhomes simply can't attempt. Wading depth is listed at 32 inches, deep enough for a flooded crossing that would strand almost anything else this size. Toyota is reportedly limiting the Magnor X10 to somewhere around 42 units for this production run, not because demand is thin, but because every chassis is hand-verified before the camper body ever goes on. 42. In a world where most luxury motorhome brands push out that many in a single busy month. The one honest criticism here, at low speed on tight switchbacks, the extended wheelbase makes three-point turns unavoidable in spots a shorter vehicle would clear in one motion. It's the trade-off you make for everything else this thing can do. And that trade-off, once you see what's waiting inside, starts to feel like a small price to pay. Step through that slightly imperfect rear door, and the vehicle stops feeling like a vehicle. The cabin opens into a single continuous space finished in a pale ash-toned wood veneer, paired with charcoal wool blend upholstery that Toyota sourced, according to early materials, from a supplier that typically works with high-end sailboat interiors. Ceiling height clears just over 6'4" at its tallest point, near the rear skylight enough that most people can stand fully upright without ducking near the galley. Walk further in, and the layout unfolds in a deliberate sequence, a fold-flat lounge that converts to a second sleeping area, a raised dinette with a table that lifts and locks into a standing workspace, a galley counter finished in the same veneer as the walls, integrated task lighting that dims on a timer instead of a switch, and tucked behind a sliding panel most people miss on first walkthrough. A narrow closet built specifically for cold weather gear. Looking at this, it feels less like sitting inside a camper and more like standing in a small, very deliberate apartment that happens to move. There's a rear skylight positioned directly over the lounge, angled so that at dusk it frames the sky without any direct glare. A detail that reportedly took 2 design revisions to get right, because the first version let in too much heat through the composite roof panel. But the detail that stays with you longest isn't a feature at all. It's the quiet. Toyota apparently spent real engineering time on cabin sound insulation. Most buyers will never think to ask about double-layer composite paneling that cuts road and wind noise down to something closer. to a parked vehicle, even at highway speed. Sit inside with the engine off, and it doesn't sound like you're in a vehicle at all. And that's before you've even opened the bathroom door. The off-grid systems are where the Magnor X10 separates itself from anything else wearing a Toyota badge. A rooftop solar array, reportedly rated around 800 watts, feeds a lithium battery bank sized at roughly 15 kilowatt hours, enough, according to early owner documentation, to run the fridge, lighting, and water pump for 4 to 5 days without sun and without plugging in anywhere. Fresh water capacity sits at 55 gallons, paired with a gray water tank and a compact filtration loop that lets a portion of gray water get reused for the exterior shower, a detail Toyota apparently doesn't put in the main brochure, because early buyers found it themselves during a walkthrough and started asking questions. Climate control runs on a diesel-fired heater instead of relying purely on the battery bank, which matters more than it sounds. It means heat in freezing conditions doesn't quietly drain the same reserve running the fridge and lights. There's also a compressor-based fridge, instead of the absorption style most campers use, which keeps running properly even parked on a serious incline. Here's the detail almost nobody outside the program knows. The onboard water heater has a secondary manual priming valve, tucked behind an access panel near the wheel well, that lets it be serviced in the field, with basic tools, no dealer visit required. It's the kind of decision that only gets made by someone who's actually camped somewhere remote enough for it to matter. Between the power, the water, and the way it all quietly works together, the Magnor X10 isn't really built for weekend trips. But what all of that adds up to, once you see the price Toyota is asking, might be the most surprising part of this entire story. Pricing on the Magnor X10 reportedly starts around $189,000 before options, according to figures circulating among early reservation holders, putting it in roughly the same territory as a fully built, high-spec Mercedes-Benz Sprinter conversion from a boutique builder, without the years-long custom-build wait most of those require. That number puts it out of reach for most people, and Toyota doesn't seem interested in pretending otherwise. This isn't built for a family wanting a weekend camper, and it isn't built for someone chasing the biggest floor plan on the lot. It's built for someone who wants to disappear into terrain for a week at a time, come back, and have the vehicle feel like it barely noticed. If that's the kind of ownership that appeals to you, quiet, self-sufficient, built to be used hard rather than looked at, this is exactly who Toyota built the Magnor X10 for. If it's not, there's nothing wrong with that either. Either way, if you've made it this far, go ahead and subscribe. There's a lot more like this coming. So here's the reveal. The Magnor X10 isn't really a motorhome trying to be luxurious. It's a small, self-sufficient home that happens to be built on a chassis capable of getting nowhere near a paved road and still working perfectly the next morning. Go back to that number from earlier, 42 units. Hand-verified chassis by hand-verified chassis. Of those 42, more than half were reportedly already reserved before Toyota made any public announcement at all, moving through word of mouth inside the same small expedition and overlanding circles that first found out about it. That's not a marketing rollout. That's something closer to a waiting list nobody outside the group even knew existed. Looking at the whole picture, the composite panels, the hand-tuned suspension, the water system built by someone who's actually needed it in the field, it feels less like a product decision and more like a small team was given permission to build something almost impossible to justify on a spreadsheet, and did it anyway. The verdict: the Magnor X10 won't be for most people, and it was never trying to be. But for the handful who actually live the kind of life it was built around, it might be the closest thing to an impossible idea Toyota has ever quietly turned into something real. If you had to choose one detail from this build to actually live with, the quiet cabin, the 42-unit rarity, or that hidden field serviceable water heater, which one would it be? Drop it in the comments. And if this kind of quiet, self-sufficient build is your kind of story, the next one might be even harder to believe. Stay close, because it's coming soon.